This is my wallet from Groove Life, okay? You see how sleek this is? You know how simple that is? I push one button, it fans 5 credit cards. This is my belt. Now, I took it off to show you guys just because I like the way that this thing hooks. I got to show you guys this thing because it hooks with a magnetic field. Look at this. You're trying to get this on. Maybe you're in the dark. Oh, and it's hooked just like that. Well, doesn't that make sense to use a magnet? These guys have everything, though. It's not just belts. It's not just phone cases. They've got watch bands over there. I just want you to go spend a minute. It'll be exactly like that cool store outside the mall that you used to sink into for the massage chairs. Simply go to groovelife.com. That's it. They got a 94-year no BS warranty. So everything you buy is going to be plenty protected. Go to groovelife.com/Chael. You can even use the promo code Chael. That's going to get you 20% off all Groove Life products. The coolest store online is groovelife.com. All right, let's talk Islam. Let's talk Islam. So, as you guys well know, old Chael is in a pursuit of his new favorite fighter. Frank Edgar retired. That leaves me as a fan in limbo. So I have to now have a new favorite fighter. And I got several to choose from. I will tell you, I'm giving a real good look to Michael Chandler being my new favorite, and I'm giving a real good look to Volkanovski being my favorite. And it's for the same reason, which is their desire to compete in front of everything else. I should add Islam to that list. I have been so flat impressed with this young man, and I feel perhaps you're missing the story, so let me just lay this out for you. I'm going to lay out what you already know, but I want to be chronological within the time frame, okay? This is a guy who many believe, many absolute insiders that are in the practice room, believe Islam is the best in the world, or at an absolute minimum, number 2, behind King Khabib only. Now, this is a story that is reported, co-signed, restated, double downed on by everybody, including the late Mr. Nurmagomedov, a retiring Khabib himself, Javier Mendez, Ali Abdelaziz. Guys in the absolute know who have been in those training rooms that are closed doors and tight-lipped. And it has not been crystal clear that it goes Khabib Islam. Not by everybody. There's been plenty of reports where that's damn near a level playing field. But imagine the pressure that you would have when Khabib stepped away from the sport, when King Khabib steps aside and he anoints Islam, the heir apparent to the throne. Plenty of young men would have loved for that to have happened, but how many young men could actually step up and perform? How many, when that opportunity was given them, could actually live up to it in a main event for the World Championship on the line? Your first time in said spot with all of this pressure. I'm just asking, that's what the Charles Oliveira fight looked like. For the first time ever, this young man, as good as he is, for the first time ever, the media is now turning on you. The fans are saying you don't even deserve the opportunity. Once the contract is signed, they then speak up and say you don't even deserve the opportunity. You haven't beaten anybody in the top 10. You haven't even faced anybody in the top 5. You should not even be in there with Charles Oliveira, let alone could you beat him? I'm just asking you, if you ever think about it from that perspective, how many young men have you ever seen? How many young men do you know that could have stepped to the plate, swung that bat, made contact? Their first night on the job. It's very impressive. Now, as soon as Islam, who comes from a very poor culture, I mean, it is important that you understand that. We don't like to talk about the money in this sport. Because when you talk about money, it's kind of gross. It's one of these weird topics. But he is a prize fighter. He doesn't have to hide that. And Islam, for as long as he'd been doing that, as hard and heavy of lifting that he did, is well enough educated on this sport to know the only time you're going to make actual money is if you're the champion and you get participation points on a future pay-per-view. which is completely incumbent on you guys. Are you going to find this match interesting or not? And if I win it, can I get another one, and stack a couple of bricks and put a little bit away? Everybody understands that, including Islam, who put zero effort into that side. I'm talking about the business, into the making money side. He put zero effort into that. He accepted the first challenge that was thrown his way, which is Alex Volkanovski face-to-face moments after he won the title in the first place. Now, Dana comes out and tells us that that was a top 5 fight, that it was trending, it could have even been a record setter. I hope that it was. But I just want you to remember the timeline, which is Islam did not pursue that fight because he thought it was going to be a record breaker or he thought it was going to be a big money fight. In fact, on paper, and the mere fact that it was put in Perth tells you they weren't expecting a whole lot of it. But there was a guy who was undefeated, who was ranked 4 spots in front of him, who was calling him out, and he said, I'll be there. It's really quite remarkable. It really is. We see so many people come out and they talk the talk about anyone, anywhere, anytime, but very few guys will actually do it. And now here you've got Islam coming off of a win, which he's not getting credit for. Not the kind of credit that he should get for taking on the #1 ranked guy in the world, not just within a weight class, the #1 ranked guy, pound for pound, in the world, and beating him in the guy's own backyard. He then gets somewhere jammed up in some IV gate. I mean, somewhere within this victory and today, there was a day or two about something with an IV. Now, the only part that I like about the IV is whatever the rule would have been, I would have liked for him to make you think he did it. I would have really enjoyed if Islam, without giving an actual confession, would have come out and led you all to believe that he was in the wrong. I just personally would have enjoyed that. My personal evil side would have enjoyed that, but he didn't do that. What he did do is he said, I'm not calling anybody out, and I'm not waiting. Okay. So here you have the heir apparent who finds himself in Abu Dhabi against the great Charles Oliveira. People say he doesn't belong there. The moment he gets done, he books a fight with a guy ranked 4 spots in front of him. He flies out and does that fight in the guy's backyard. He beats said guy. They accuse him of cheating. And he says, I will take on whoever the next opponent is. That's what happened. And there is something that is wildly refreshing about that. It's what Volk has in him. It's what Michael Chandler's got in him. But it stands out and it sets him apart. And I get that Chandler found the money. I get that Volk found the money. I get that Islam's going to find the money. I'll just remind you of where it starts. I'll just remind you of the commonalities. I'll remind you of the guys that truly want to compete. And they don't care against who. And I could only imagine myself in Islam's spot. But I would have had so much fun. Oh, my goodness. Oh, if I would have won this record-setting fight, I was champion of the world. I was accused of cheating, and the whole world wanted to know if I had did it, if I was going to say anything, if I was going to slip up, if they were going to find a nurse, if they could zero in on my vein and find the pictures. The whole world. I would have had so much fun with you guys. And Volk instead, I apologize, Islam instead decides to just tell the UFC to find me my next opponent, and that can be anybody, including Volkanovski. If that is who you'd like me to face, then that's who I'll face. It's a very rare attitude. It's a very refreshing attitude. And most young men, no matter how good they were, no matter who their coach was or who they got to train with every day, could not, when the time comes, live up to that expectation. But Islam has. I don't want you guys to miss this stuff. And I don't only bring this to you just to give Islam credit. I also bring it to you to put the whole rest of the division on notice. When you have a champion whose dance card is open, who is telling the world, I'll fight any one of you, but not one of you has spoken up. In a general circumstance, I would sit in this chair and I would discuss the top 3 fights for Islam. I would discuss them based on the headlines of the Elbows, of the Manias, of the Junkies, of the Ariel Helwanis, of the Mark Ramondes, of the Brett Okamotos, of the Josh Grosses, of the world. I said, well, here's what Ariel thinks. And I get out my little whiteboard and I go, well, listen to what Josh Gross says over here. And I'd be putting you with different opponents for Islam, but I can't do that because not a single 55-pounder has called him out. And I do mean not one. I got plenty of slobber all over my mouth on Volkanovski. I fully admit that. Volkanovski hasn't called him out. Talked about he'd like a rematch. I'd like a rematch. Me too. That's not the same thing. That's not the same thing as calling somebody out. You have a champion who has said that he will fight anybody. He said that he's not going to wait. He has a history of proving that he's a man of a word. He has a history of proving he will fly wherever he needs to fly, whenever he needs to do it. Just send him the location. And there's not a single 55-pounder that thought they should raise their hand and say that they would like to be the next in line for that opportunity. That surprises me.